Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy for Steve Arts 89. Well, Picard Season 2, Episode 2. Oh god, I don't want to think about Season 2. Episode 2, I just watched it. It was released earlier in the day. Now, it's really hot today. It's about 40 degrees Celsius, which is about 104 Fahrenheit. So I've been sweltering all day and I've been putting off watching it. Just watched it. It's very difficult to review it because basically I'm trying to give it a chance and I'm finding good things about it, but unfortunately Picard drew its line in the sand regardless. I saw the other day someone had posted pictures from a ad or something for the second episode that showed the Discovery Enterprise and the Next Gen Enterprise D both being displayed in holograms in Starfleet. Now, I'd already seen the Next Gen Enterprise shown, so when I saw the Enterprise, I was like, just wait a minute, isn't that the hologram that they had above Picard in the early footage? And I'm like, oh no, don't tell me they're going to try and actually put Discovery into the Next Gen era and try and validate it. And basically what they've done is they've drawn a line in the sand and they said, this is the Discovery universe. Discovery exists here. The Enterprise is the Discovery Enterprise, not the original Enterprise. It's not the original canon timeline. It's the Discovery, whatever you want to call it, the Prime timeline. It is Prime. So they kept saying it's Prime. And they kept saying Discovery is Prime. Yeah, that's because Prime isn't canon. Canon is everything that came before the JJ film. Prime is what happened before the timeline was interrupted in the JJ universe. So, and there's a lot of debate with this. Like, I was really shocked. There's a Facebook group called the Original and Only Timeline, Star Trek: The Original and Only Timeline. I used to be a member of. I got removed at some point. I've asked to join again. They are basically saying they are counting Picard as Next Generation era and canon. They're saying it continues on the Next Generation story. It continues on Star Trek. It is Star Trek. I'm like, but yet they don't acknowledge Discovery or the JJ films. You're not allowed to speak about them. And you're not allowed to say that Picard is related to Discovery or they will ban you and block you and cut you off the page. So they are so deluded and desperate to have a new Star Trek that they're willing to accept a show that clearly says this is in the Discovery universe. It's full of lens flares and Discovery technology and literally the Discovery Enterprise. Literally, they're showing the Discovery Enterprise saying to us, they didn't have to have that there. They didn't have to have that shot there. They could have had any ship there. They could have showed the E, the D and the E, or they could have shown the refit A, which they haven't shown in Discovery. They could have shown that. They could have done, or they could have just shown the original and said, we are in the original canon timeline. You can relax, this is canon timeline. It's not the Prime timeline from JJ or Discovery, which some people are saying are the same universe. Other people are saying it's a different universe. Some people are saying there's 3 universes, there's 3 licenses, so it's a mess. So that's the first issue. You can't even get into Picard without getting into all of that. So I couldn't even start to talk about the episode without talking for 3 minutes about that. So, but the sad part is when you actually get into the episode, it's not Discovery level bad. Like, Discovery would insult my intelligence fairly quickly. Season 2 was a little better. But Season 1 was pretty bad. And I'm comparing this to Season 1 because it's the first season. Season 2 obviously is more relevant because it's closer, newer. But, okay, so we have a little 1 minute 40 second last time on Star Trek Picard thing. And then we get into the episode, which goes for about, I think, 42 minutes. Now, we start off flashing back 14 years to 2385, to First Contact Day when the synths attacked Mars. And they actually show a scene I've already commented on, where basically we get to see a little bit earlier than that. Basically, a guy goes and picks up the plastic people, and they've got this really hokey little fairy tale music in the background. They pick up the plastic people and go take them to work because they're basically not slaves, but they're basically made just to work. They're just robots. They're just made to work. And obviously these people who seem to be not well educated, not well paid, who are eating low quality food, who are basically just truckers in space, that sort of alien sort of aesthetic of poor people, miners, just people like this wouldn't exist. A work environment like this would not exist in the next generation, in Gene Roddenberry's future. There wouldn't be underpaid, uneducated, poorly fed, ignorant people swearing and speaking about other beings as though they're less than. This is not Star Trek. This is not what we would have in the next generation. So apparently humanity has de-evolved back to our era, and this is the main problem with this show. And that is all, those are all choices that they've made, just like showing the Enterprise. The actual writing itself, the story, the characters, the main characters in that, are not that bad. I was able to watch the rest of the episode without really being bothered at any real point. So everyone's seen the scene. Basically, he walks in, just walks up to a panel, boom, takes down the defense grid, and there is some attempt to stop him, but he kills them pretty quickly. And the only good thing about the whole scene is we actually see a real phaser. Like, we actually see a phaser shooting long orange phaser beams, and it looks and sounds awesome. That's the only good thing about the scene. And then he shoots himself in the head because, of course, we have to have a dramatic ending. And then we go to... What do we go to? Of course, Picard and his workers. Now, there's some talk about them as well. The good thing about them is they've got both a bumpy-headed, four-headed Romulan and a smooth-headed Romulan, like the original series and Next Gen, which sort of says that they both exist, which is what they should have done with the Klingons. They could have had the Klingorks if they had regular Klingons as well. Now, they've shown Worf, so they've shown a traditional Klingon in this era, which may imply that they exist along with or after the Klingorks. So I don't know. We haven't seen any Klingons yet. They're saying we're not going to see any Klingons because they would have to be Klingorks, and that the image of Worf they had to basically pay for to show. So they've done a good job with the Romulans, though. There's no problem there because they didn't screw them up in Discovery, so they don't have anything to retcon or fix. And basically, they are helping Picard investigate what happened to Daj. They've sort of found there's no footage, there's no proof of her, and they're basically saying it's not just the Tal Shiar, or whatever they were called, the secret Romulan police. It's worse than that. It's the people behind them that apparently have some irrational hatred of AI. So they apparently are all a part of this, and they have scrubbed the scene of Daj's boyfriend's murder and the attack, and they weren't really able to find anything much, except that the sister was contacting her from off-world. And what we find out in the episode basically is that, I'll jump ahead a little bit, there are Romulans who are either hiding in Starfleet as Vulcans or just actually have gotten into Starfleet as Romulans since the Romulans were sort of assimilated, which is another thing. We've got Romulans with British and Irish accents, the implication being that they settled on Earth and assimilated and gained accents to fit in. But some people are saying this is ridiculous, that wouldn't happen in 10-15 years. That's normally a second generation thing, and that the comic, the Countdown comic, actually establishes that Picard's workers were from the Tal Shiars basically and working on Romulus. So I can't imagine they would have had much time to actually spend on Earth to assimilate and get accents and so forth. But I do like the female Romulan. I like that the Irish Romulan actually works. I like her. I like the fact that she doesn't really take shit from Picard, and she just tells him what's what. And you can tell she's concerned about him. It's not belligerence or anything. She doesn't want him to die. She doesn't want him to get himself killed. But then we get to the other element, which is a bit more important than all the conspiracy stuff, which I'll get to last, I guess. Picard gets a visit from a doctor, and he apparently does have, was it Irinotic syndrome? And basically there is no cure for it. There's different types of it, and they all end in death, just different periods. It'll take different lengths. So he's basically been told, you're better off to die in action. So I'm happy to basically give you a fake medical clearance so you can go off on a mission. This is before he went to see the Admiral, the Commander-in-Chief, because you're better off to die in battle, which is what they are rumouring happens, that Picard dies at the end of season 1, and at season 2 it's just they rename the ship Picard, and it's the ship going on without Picard and his huge, and Patrick Stewart's huge paycheck. So this is something they're rumouring that could be possible, but I'm not sure. Now the other part of the story is pretty simple. Basically the Romulans are behind the attacks on the synth. They are trying to find the twin, and Nemec, or whatever his name was, I forgot, sorry, I should have refamiliarized myself with all the names of the characters from last episode. But basically he slept with the twin, and he's working on her to try and find out where the nest of synths are, because apparently the synths, after they attacked, some of them have survived, and the Romulans are trying to hunt them down. And I don't think Starfleet would particularly care. And there's all this drama about how the Romulans were treated by the Federation, that basically they picked a side. They were pressured into helping the Romulans, because Starfleet, they were their enemies, and a lot of Starfleet members didn't want them, basically said they would remove themselves from Starfleet and all their support if they helped the Romulans. So it was a political decision, in part based on supposedly not having enough resources to do it, or not wanting to, or not being allowed to use their resources on the Romulans and an enemy, which is pretty much racism and political genocide, to allow them to be killed or to die or whatever, and not help and sit by and watch them die, which is why Picard left Starfleet. And that was covered in the other episode. But we actually hear a Starfleet Commander-in-Chief say, basically, we decide who lives and dies because we have responsibilities to other members, and we have to put them first, the needs of the many. Is basically what she was saying, but not in the way Spock said it. Not in a noble sacrifice, but in prejudice and bigotry and racism. So this is where they're going with this, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the political allegory and everything, so long as it doesn't destroy the Federation, as long as it's something that happens in or around the Federation that gets resolved, so the Federation can continue on as the example of what to do and what to be. But what we're seeing is a sort of de-evolved Federation. So that's the big concern, and that seems to be happening, but we haven't seen it yet. And the characters, the scripting, the pacing, it was all fine. There were a few little moments, but other than that, the episode itself was good. Sorry, I've got notes literally written on my page. And what have I not covered? I think I've done everything. Basically, the Borg cube is being taken apart. They are de-Borgifying the Borg, and the twin is there to observe that, and it's all very mysterious, but kind of predictable. And the whole sleeping with the enemy, like they did it in Discovery. The Admiral doesn't know that the Romulans are behind this. There is a Commodore who could be Romulan or Vulcan. She's moved four-headed Romulan or Vulcan, and she's behind it all. And she's got Lieutenant Rizzo, who is Nemec's, whatever his name is, sister, who is disguised as a human, and she's the one who's actually was behind Dahj's murder, and is now trying to hunt down the twin. And it's a not very interesting conspiracy theory, and I'm kind of fine if it just exemplifies a political point and something that we should be paying attention to. in our time, that's fine, so long as like I said, it doesn't destroy the Federation, what the Federation is, and it's an example of how to maintain the Federation, not because I originally this is much better. The Romulans infiltrating is much better than Starfleet rotting from the inside on its own. That was what what the rumor was, that Starfleet fell apart itself, that it was humans basically just weren't good enough to maintain themselves and to stay, with the evolution that they were with, that they were actually going to keep going and evolving, that they basically destroyed themselves. If the Federation is destroyed by Discovery time, it's because of the Romulans and politics, and not because humanity itself just, didn't have it in them, like Gene Roddenberry envisioned, that we did have that future in us. So I'm feeling a bit better about that. I don't want it to happen, but even if it does, at least it's happening in a different way than what I first thought. But I've been talking for 15 minutes. I better stop. I think I've covered everything. This is just my first reaction. I'll probably do a more complicated review of season 1 and 2 later on, especially after I listen to a lot more information from other people and reviews and stuff and other people's videos, because there's things I don't quite understand that I need to do some research before I can do a really accurate review. And obviously the more episodes you see, the more it makes other things make sense. So I'm going to wait a couple episodes in and then do a proper review of each episode. But okay, 16 minutes, I gotta stop. Thanks. Feel free to, thanks for listening to this long. Feel free to subscribe, comment, like. Comments are fun. Anything you know about the series and what's happening, I'm happy to get more information. Thanks. Bye.